Lynch. Rowland.
Here.
Weiner. Here. Potter.
Here.
Karen. Here. Schlicker.
Here.
Vanup.
Here.
Brumman.
Here.
Turret. Here.
Okay, need an approval of the agenda. Everybody checks it. Do I have a motion?
Thank you. There's some on the desk back there.
Everyone should have on there that it's the architect Jonathan Lee is speaking also. I don't know if we have that, if it made it onto your agenda.
It's on the new one.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I will make a motion to accept the agenda as written.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. Let's see. All those in favor?
Yes.
Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so carries. Approved agenda. All right, need approval of the last month's minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to check those out.
Yes, I will make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have the first and the second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Yes.
Opposed?
Aye.
Whoops, I'm sorry, Bob, did you say?
I said aye.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay. So those are approved. Okay. This time we'll have public comments. If you want to comment, will you please stand, state your name and where you live? And we have 2 minutes for your comments, so anybody that would like to.
Judy French, Harrisville Township. I'm hoping at some point that you may mention or touch on your meal program. Lately, there's been rumors in the community that ACCOA cut the meal program. I've had people ask me, I'm like, no, they haven't cut any meal programs, but it would just be nice if maybe that is clarified, anything that you may be doing with the meal program, just so that the community knows about that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay, moving right along then. Okay, our first speaker for today will be Commissioner Brumman.
Thank you, sir. Just a few notes from the county. The 51st Annual County Fair was the most successful fair. The Saturday night was the largest gate take that they have ever had, which is pretty terrific. They particularly appreciated the volunteer of 2 of our staff members, if I may say our. Connie and Wendy did Tuesday night, I believe. Yes. At the gate, and they did very well. So, Equalization Department has had 2 resignations recently. Troy Stuppers, the director, and Aaron Mahalik both resigned. They've gone into what I termed as private practice, and I guess they have formed their own LLC and are, so to speak, out on their own. We have a temporary equalization director, and we are advertising for a permanent one and for a clerk. There's a box at the north end. I don't think any of you need to know this. There's a box at the north end of the county building providing for free 24-hour availability of naloxone. I hope you don't know anybody that needs it either. It's stocked through the services of NMRE, NEMRI, which is Northern Michigan Regional Entity. They handle and deal with drug treatment throughout our northeast area. And also it's monitored then by a staff member from Catholic Human Services who checks it periodically. If you're not familiar with naloxone, it is the drug that can be used to counteract a fentanyl. Someone goes into a fentanyl arrest. The naloxone can be given, and the one good thing is if it is not a fentanyl arrest situation, the naloxone is not harmful to them. So it's not a double jeopardy or anything like that. The opioid committee will resume their monthly meetings in September. They've been committed to the best utilization of the dollars that are available through the lawsuits. It must be focused on prevention, treatment, and recovery. And we are moving forward with broadband, as you may have seen or heard. It's going to be a long process, a few years at a minimum. It will be very worthwhile. What it allows so much to happen is people can come up here and live and still work as if they were in the lower section of the state, or even elsewhere, any place in the United States. So that gives them a chance to work hundreds of miles away from their actual work site.
Thank you. Okay, we have another speaker, our construction manager and developer, Andy Shaw.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So I just want to give an update from the last meeting. I was going to run through what we've done on the site, some of the issues we worked through, and then introduce our architect, Jonathan Lee, and then we'll let him take over on kind of the site plan issues. So can you hear me okay? Is that okay? Okay, so we've had a busy 30 days from the last meeting, and during that time we've spent most of it doing earthwork. And so we had encountered, I believe at the last meeting, this large hole that was a result of Dollar General's discharge of their material onto this portion of the property. And we made a decision to clean all that out. And we had David Kaiser come in with his long reach. And I just want to give David appropriate creds. He came in a couple of days, ran himself and his nephew, so essentially 2 shifts. And then it's very difficult digging, a long reach with stumps and logs and what have you. It was hot, smelly, and he just kept on it. And then after he finished, I think round numbers, he gave us a bill about half of what it probably should have been. And so Dave really, we needed him to get in. He really was the only person that had the machine that could get in and get the work done. So pat on the back to Dave Kaiser, he really helped us out. Then we stripped the topsoil, and our goal has always been to create a long, flat area. And about a week or so ago, we hit that milestone. So we now have about 98% of our earthwork complete, and so now we're ready just to kind of tune up the ends and actually get to start the actual on-site work. During the time, we've had a lot of interaction with Jonathan Lee. We have our civil engineer, Bob Goodhart, Pathfinder Engineering, that identified a lot of grading type issues, radius issues, and things that pushed Jonathan, to make adjustments. And so we had a good dynamic period of time where we brought together and kind of resolved a number of those kind of technical issues, if you will, during the past 2 to 3 weeks that we've been working on the site plan. So tonight we're going to, or today rather, we're going to show you the site plan where we are today. And then we had a little problem with the ordinance where the ordinance only allowed for multiple family, and we want to do the bungalows. So the Village of Lincoln adjusted their ordinance last night actually to allow for the bungalows. And then after that adjustment, they gave us full site plan approval on what you're going to see. So it was a little bit backwards of just kind of how the meetings happen to fall. And so if this site plan is agreeable to the commission, then we'll be off to the races. Then Jonathan would actually move to the next phase, which is the architectural type drawings, where he really gets much more precise in all the various room sizes and gets into janitorial closets and those kinds of things. So along the way, we've had all sorts of interactions with structural engineers, kitchen companies, suppliers of all sorts for the building. And so that's an ongoing daily activity that I engage in. Not a day goes by that we're not talking to a steel contractor or somebody that's in some way going to be involved in the project over time. So that's just a lot of good base work that's getting done. On the houses, the site plan you'll see today has a ballpark location. We've been in the woods for about 10 days now, clearing brush, clearing dead trees, autumn olive, just kind of getting a better handle on what we have back there. And what we have is a beautiful forest with beautiful apple trees, a lot of really beautiful pines. And so this week, and so long as everything looks good on the site plan to the group, that we're really going to try to locate these actual houses with the goal of not taking down any really beautiful trees and what have you. So we're just going to really try to surgically insert these 8 structures in there. And then there's a discussion of careful management of the houses so that it all stays in the positive zone, right? So any one of us can dream up scenarios where it doesn't. And so partly there's a discussion about, is it best at 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom, some with 1, some with 2, and so that's kind of out there. And then on the houses, we're at 1 garage for every house. Kind of, if you're going to have 1 house with a garage, you got to have kind of all 8 with a garage, and it seems like that's something that people are looking to have. And so that's kind of where the housing is going. We're going to very soon hone in on the actual location and the actual drawing, and then start those foundations going. So that's the housing side of things. And then on the actual site, if the site plan looks good to everyone, we'll have the civil engineer, Bob Goodhart, prepare biddable site drawings. So that'll show our storm sewer, exactly how our septic's going to work, where the well is going to go, what size, and that'll allow us to get those next group of approvals. So we'll submit those to the health department and what have you. So that's coming for the next meeting. I'm hoping to report that we've got final civil engineering drawings, preliminary bids, and we've got the actual site work, which is round numbers about $1 million of money out there collectively. Then there's a couple of interesting things. We had a group get a hold of a Spectrum subsidiary, essentially, or a separate area within Spectrum that's got a bunch of money to bring fiber optics into the area. And so he's working, actually talking to his boss today, but the hope is that we'll not only have high-speed fiber to the building, but they're going to pay for it in the building and to the houses and in the houses. So it's going to be pretty wild. We're going to have, he's talking 500 meg speed, which essentially is instantaneous, right? It's just no lag whatsoever. And then for any kind of need that we'll have in the building, whether it's machines or really anything you can dream up, we're going to have first-class internet, and probably be worthwhile to have a computer area for people to come in and and like you see in hotels, where a couple computers for someone that doesn't have that to use them. So that's that. And then when at last meeting, we were close to finishing with Jonathan Lee, and I don't want to make him blush, but he is fantastic. I am so happy that we got him. He's an incredible architect. I say in my lifetime I've probably hired 100 architects, and it's very rare. Plenty of competent people, that's just the norm. But to find the extraordinary is rare, and you'll see in what he's drawn. So many times we had a challenging area to work in front. We were trying to work through this curve or how these drives work or what have you. And I just time after time after time, it was Jonathan himself who came up with a great solution. So really blessed to have him. And so I'm hoping today, if everyone feels good about the site plan, that we'll kind of move on to the next phase. So.
Can you move the microphone in front of you? They're saying it needs to be right in front of you.
Okay, everybody here?
Yep.
If I remember correctly, you said before with the normal spectrum, I guess the cable or whatever it is, that was going to cost us a bundle of money, wasn't it?
Yeah, their first quote was around $15,000, and they were going to handle 8 to 9. And then I still am working with that group. It's like a different division of Spectrum. And then we were trying to figure out how we can share that. Can we get some other people to help bear that part of that cost? And so that's one ongoing activity, because I haven't locked down the other group. But this guy, the fellow that called me, his name's Jeremy, actually employed by Spectrum, he just said, we've got a different pile of money. And he's just like, those guys, I don't deal with those guys. I've got the big federal money. And I suspect it's more of like a federal grant for rural stuff. I don't know. He didn't specify how it is he had so much money available to him. But it was one of the other things we've seen many times, is that when it was a senior center, senior housing, and a lot of senior components, that helped us get into this guy's purview. And so, but again, we're kind of just on the small side. Like say, for instance, you were in a rural setting and had some just bigger activity, whatever you can dream up, then, that would be where he'd go for. So we're kind of right on the cusp of getting in this guy's door, but he liked our situation, and I could just feel like he's going to go to bat for us with this boss. So.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, next on our list, we are blessed to have Jonathan Lee, our architect, and he's going to give us a little demonstration.
All right. I'm going to restart here just a second.
Do you need a chair?
No, if you don't mind, I'll just stand right there. Is that okay if I stay in? Sound good? All right. Okay. I'll just introduce myself. I'm Jonathan Lee, an architect, and I just want to tell you a little bit about me, just so so there's a little bit of knowledge of who I am. I grew up overseas. I was born in Detroit. My dad was a builder. He built for missions, and I've been in building pretty much all my life. Grew up sort of seeing how you build cottage industries from nothing because of the missions that he was in. I lived in the Congo. We then moved back to the Michigan after 10 years in the Congo, and just really formed a lot of my formative years there. It was a great experience, but I just wanted to give you sort of a little general history of me. I then ended up in Fairview with my parents, going to high school, not them, me going to high school, and then off to college after that good period of time in high school. University of Michigan, then found myself out east for 10 years, teaching for Notre Dame for a year in Rome, and just then finally realizing family comes first, and well, God comes first, but my faith is first, and then family, and just really felt like it's important for us to just remember that that's what life is about. And architecture is obviously a big part of that because I make my livelihood doing that. So that gives you a little bit of personality to my color, if you will, why I exist, if that's all right. And I work hard. I was born, raised Midwestern. Hard work is a good thing, and never stop thinking about and educating oneself to their craft. And that's just been really a mantra of mine. So I really want to tell everyone thank you for allowing me to be a part of this, and I welcome the opportunity to listen to all of you, understand really what you're looking for, and trying to discern from your thoughts and comments really a great approach to what the result of the project is. And there'll be back and forth. You know, Andy and I have gone back and forth. Do you really think this? Do you really think that? Why is this? How is this? And that's really what develops. There's always a solution in the why back and forth, and I think that's a healthy thing to do, and to figure out what the real true need is for the project and how that's accomplished. So I'll go through the project, and if you have any questions about this, I'm glad to answer. We can figure out how to make adjustments, or I'll tell you why the pros and cons of that might be, and then we can make adjustments that way. I just like to look at all the things on the table before we make a final decision, and so that we can make the best decision possible. So that being said, the community center, if you will, and the senior center is all part of the new development that is extended into, I guess one would say, sort of the fitness center, if you sort of separate them out. On your pages, the colors are a little different. Obviously, the translation is a little different from the screen. But I'll start with the entrance to the site is right here. Barlow Road is right here. Dollar General is right here. And so you have the entrance, and what we're doing is coming down the hill low enough where the grade actually meets up, where Andy's got it, and the engineer really felt like it was the best transition into the site. And I always want to be mindful of the traffic. There is a decel zone, and so that this entrance is safe to enter and exit. And there's sort of 3 lanes here. There's a turn-in lane, a left turn, and a right turn lane at the entrance, so there won't be an issue about getting out or in. And then what that does is it brings you into a driveway that takes you to the parking lot that's at the entrance side of the building. The building entrance is right here, so that it has an easy access from the parking lot, and also the community center has an access entrance right here. The thought is for that to have this sort of duality of entrance, this minor, this primary, is that the community center with the dining and the meal service being right here can also function as an event center, if you will. Weddings, graduations, many other events that obviously you can think of. And that's really why I wanted sort of this focal point of an entrance, that I feel like it should be really something special, and it will be as we develop the architecture. And then the main entrance, being this lobby, can also act as a reception space for that event center, and act as the center entrance for then the fitness, gym, the tennis, and the basketball court. Sorry, am I blocking you there? You good? All right. So that then, after, if you've got the building in this spot here, we then also take this driveway back to the housing and the back parking lot back here. So we need the parking in order to accomplish the proper amount of parking spaces for this building amount. Yeah, you're welcome to look at that. Yeah,
I figured that.
my notes are on there.
I won't erase them.
Okay, don't erase them.
It says, "I love Rollin."
And then the housing is up here in this corner. There's, on the page, essentially, it's on your pages there. There's essentially 8 houses up in here that are small bungalows with a garage attached to them. And that space is ample room for any of that going on, activity. And then beyond the parking lot here, there is a septic right off the end of it, which is on your page as well. I wanted to blow this up as much as I could so you could really focus on the seniors, the center itself, the community center. So,
Is that where all the offices are there? I
offices,
can't quite see them.
yeah, I know.
But
They're-
they're small, but is that
Right.
around the event center?
Yeah, so there's offices, there's 6 offices right here, and they're right around this center
Oh.
here. So that's the main entrance. Really, the main entrance is here for that activity going on day to day all the time. Yeah. And this will be a glazed or glass surface along here, wall, so that this has good light coming into those offices with opening it. The concept is it's these hallways or these spines that go through the center of the building really make the connective piece. It's kind of like an indoor loggia / sidewalk, if you will, so that it wraps around the face of the building, but it's enclosed, obviously, because we live in Michigan. One thing an architect should be very aware of, that climate does matter. And then also from the back parking lot, there's an entrance here that brings you back to the spine and also opens up the side of the gym so that there's glazing glass view so that the public there's no, I just wanted very open transparency. Another thing that happens is we would have the same thing for this fitness center, which fitness center is the ellipticals, the treadmills, and the other equipment that goes into a typical gym fitness area, with some meeting rooms adjacent to it, i.e. classrooms like yoga, Tai Chi was mentioned, other classes I'm sure that you can all imagine go into that. Locker rooms adjacent to the fitness center, and men's and women's bathroom near the center of the building. The basketball, I'd like to see an axis right through here so you can see right into it. Again, the transparency so that there's really views right through the building, and there you can see the activity and you can see what's happening so that there's just good community vibe there and no strangeness, let's say. Again, another activity here where this is obviously the very important part of this, with the senior center, the Meals on Wheels. Sorry. Somebody can turn off the sleep. There it is. All right, there you go. So this area here would be the dining area that can expand into this meeting room with a flex wall if need be. But we're doing the square footage calcs based on a 15 square feet per person, which is a typical space planning for a dining facility. So that space is roughly, I think I figured 60 by 80 is what we're looking at. And we'll make adjustments as we need to in that footprint. I'm setting it up for about 200 people is what I was thinking. It was mentioned in our meetings back and forth that there's about 100 that come to meals. There was 150 at one time. But then in an event, I thought, well, in an event, 200 people would be a good number to target if there was a wedding, potentially, a big wedding of sorts, or event, graduation, blah, blah, blah. That we can make up the events. Kind of. So, and then there's meeting rooms, sewing room, storage for the sewing room, that kind of craft room, if you will. My understanding is there's that kind of activity going on, so we'll be accommodating that. There's obviously kitchen back of house. There's actually a garage parking in here that you drive into with a closed door so that you're accessing it with the truck that delivers the meals, so they're not losing temperature. Obviously a very important thing with state code and whatnot. Pantry storage. Again, men's and women's back of this. Then one of the key things I like about this is you can bring your toddler here or your 5 or 6 year old or whatever that doesn't want to play basketball, but probably will, but can go in here and there's a little playroom in there, as well as part of the hub. We'll make that something that they can go in so they're not getting hit with basketballs or getting run over wandering into the court. So in general, you have the community center, again, review, the basketball, which has a full 92 length basketball court, lengthwise with some bleachers along this side, and then two typical high school size 84-foot long basketball courts going each direction. This is the tennis area. Again, this can be split in 4 so that you can have 4 pickleball courts. So there's this versatility built into the facility that is really needed, so it's multi-purpose. And that in general, well then obviously I didn't go over this yet, where the service is back here, where it's part of this back house. area where it comes back down underneath the building. So if you have the entrance coming in here, and I'm sorry it's a little light here, but this then service comes back around here with the, you know, the dumpsters, all the things that will need to be back in the house.
I
Sort of
have a
tucked away.
question.
Yeah.
Where's the handicap parking and how far is it to get into the building?
So handicap parking, what I laid out along this is that they're right here in front and right here. They're supposed to be as close to the entrance as possible. And basically, I'm trying to make them so that they're not crossing the traffic behind the parking spaces. Yeah, I'm very sensitive to that, and my hearing. Yeah, you have to be mindful of that. And also, if you want to go to the back of the building, the handicap parking would be the two adjacent, there'd be like two on either, so 4 adjacent spots, or whatever the number is per code requirement for the handicap code.
I go to a senior center where there aren't a lot of people, but the 8 handicap parking spots are full all the time.
So let's keep that into consideration, because if there's a higher population that need it, let's figure that out. Yeah, sounds like a good idea. Yes, sir.
I've got a few questions.
Sure.
Turn this on so you can hear me. The fitness center, my slight concern on that one is, my wife is in the field of rehabilitation, and a lot of the equipment we have in here is really not suited toward the older population. So my concern would be in the fitness center is having the right equipment there primarily for the seniors. We're also talking about some segregation to some degree, because sometimes the older population doesn't want to be disturbed with the younger population, because they can get a little carried away, a little more rambunctious than us senior folks. So you know, that would be one of my concerns. I noticed also the trees, you know, toward the entrance of the parking areas. I would really like those areas, in my personal opinion, would like those clear so you've got good visibility and, you know, try to minimize the accidents and things. And I was wondering why was the necessity for the gym, for the basketball, volleyball? I'm thinking about it. I know there are some seniors that do play volleyball, but I guess I'm kind of concerned with the upkeep of the floor, and
Okay.
those are my concerns for right now.
Gary, if I can jump in on the equipment, I've been working with a guy from, his name is Joe Bridwell. He's with Matrix, and he's really the best guy. So Matrix makes a lot of really good machinery, in addition to the company called New. But he has a lot of experience, and so every machine that he's picked out so far is the most senior friendly. So just as an example, on a treadmill, so you can have a treadmill, you got to step up like this. But they have a special senior treadmill that's only up a couple inches to get on, and it has 4 baked-in safety factors to it. So if you trip, if you fall, what have you, it stops on a dime. But it's a special treadmill designed specifically for an elderly person. So, but that times every other machine. So we've got basically everything that he's laid out, whether it's this thing or that thing, is designed for, you know, to be utilized in a senior center. And so, go ahead.
On that note, can I get a copy of some of that? Because I'd like my wife to look it over.
Oh,
because
yeah.
she does
Yep.
work with the senior population when it comes to treating them for, you know, certain rehab.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't mind having a second pair of eyes, because as you would, I want to get this right the first time and not
certainly.
have to.
And then along those lines is that Leroy had given us a machine that he and his rehab had a lot of experience with and really liked, and so we've got that in as well. But yeah, we'll be, so at this stage, you know, we're in the big site plan, big building kind of shapes, and then assuming everything works well, he'll be going into the next level of detail, right? And then within that, we'll get into layout and the actual machines and what have you. And then on the trees, we'll certainly make sure, you know, they're deciduous types with a high bulb so we don't block anything. And then on each one of the larger areas, I just wanted to say, while we're saying it's a tennis court or it's a basketball court, it's endless, the opportunities that can be in any given space, right? And so Carol and I had talked about the notion that it'd be a movable stage that could be for plays or for music or what have you. And I'm almost reluctant to put a particular use on a particular space, because it's really like the game room, let's just say, sure, if you have a pool table and a ping pong table, you're probably not going to move those around so much. But when it comes to any one of the larger areas, it can be a class, it can be, it can be learning music. I mean, it's just that and anything else for any given area. And I think my belief has been, the more inviting you make the place, the cooler it is, the more it's going to have a draw to it. Then you'll see those, can I do this? Sure, let's line it up kind of thing. And so that's kind of, again, I always say that the 2-year report card on this building is a full parking lot, right? A lot of it, a lot of time, a lot of use. And then again, that translates into revenue.
I'm sorry, that was one other thing that I mentally fell off my internal notes. Have we got any kind of storage for vehicles on this? Because I know right now we have vehicles that we have to get meals out with. I know there was talk about attaching them. I don't care if they're attached or unattached, but keeping them out of the elements, I think, would be
Absolutely. And so we've got some right now, but that's something that was brought up earlier. And so we'll make sure, in that back area, we've got a lot of room back there in the service area.
I'm not, I don't even care if they're carports. I mean,
Right.
to some degree, just as long as we can keep the elements off the vehicles.
We'll make sure that it has that, absolutely.
And as far as the segregation goes to the fitness center, is that something you've got?
Yeah, so a lot of that, I think the better way to handle the segregation component, I believe it should be in almost everything. And I know I just keep using my parents for reference because they go to the senior center every day. But at their place, they have hours that are senior only on every component of the place. And then they're typically the hours that's most convenient for those people. And so I know, like with my dad, he goes to the gym with his buddies. It's only the older guys, and they've got whatever it is, 10 to 2 on Thursday, or whatever pick your times. But I think that's, instead of segregating the machines per se, it really works out nicely. I can just think of so many times you just don't want to be in there with kind of the more, let's say, the high school football group, right? And then I think people just accommodate their schedules. If it's just known that the senior only time is 10 to 2 on this day, it's great. You make your schedule, and it's just a more enjoyable experience for everybody.
I can add something about the basketball, volleyball delineation. When we were speaking to Superintendent O'Connor and the athletic director, Joy Bullis, we were trying to get together some intramural pickleball and line some courts during the winter. And they expressed that they basically don't have enough court time for all the sports that they want to have. Junior high and high school, volleyball, basketball, wrestling, JV, and varsity, that they couldn't really allot any time for us other than in the evening. In fact, some nights they had their kids practicing late at night. So I could envision that this would allow them to actually have more court time also.
Cool. Yeah, and go ahead, Jonathan.
Just speak to the surface maintenance and whatnot. We're looking at some surfaces that are really low maintenance, so those things are considered to be taken into account. We're taking that into account, so we understand maintenance isn't free, so we need to be mindful of that as well. And also, really looking at the building as a sustainable type building, so that there's good quality materials without compromising the use, and without also being silly about it, where you're sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul on the sustainability. So just good common sense, I think, is the way to build, and maintenance is always an issue. Obviously, we consider, sure. He's got. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Going into the fitness room, you got a little place here, I didn't put it in.
I did.
That's not the executive director's.
No, it's-
shower and that.
That's another class, that's potentially another classroom that was talked about, how we might consider last night. And the reason I've sketched it in is for my mental note to consider. All right.
Just a quick update, on the volleyball courts and basketball courts, like Bob said. I've been to the tournaments, 10U, 12U, 14U, 16U, and 18U volleyball tournaments. 46 teams, all day long. They start at 8 in the morning, and it is absolutely the greatest time that the kids can have. If you bring them into your town, not only do they have a place to play besides a high school, you're close to Chris Mart, Dollar General, you're close to food, the kids can go over, they can get stuff, and hopefully there's a concession stand near the, where they can use it as generating funds for the community center. The basketball, 3-on-3, 5-on-5, all day long. Different schools come in, and when people come into your town, they're like, oh, this is wonderful, I go to West Branch and Ogama, I go to those tournaments, and it's like, wow, if we only had something like that in Lincoln, and it is so wonderful to have that.
AAU tournaments.
Yeah, they're incredible. So just an update on that, and if it's low maintenance on the floors, they have a person come in, they sweep in between the games, a bunch of kids. Usually the kids take the mops and they go up and down the floor in between games because they need traction. So it's like, okay. And they all push it in the corner, and then the maintenance guy comes over and he takes care of it. But I really see a need in our area.
I have a question on the garage that we have there. Is that large enough for like 2 vehicles, lawnmowers, all the yard equipment and everything?
I haven't accounted for the lawnmower and yard equipment. We'll work on something with regard to that in this service area. So it was brought up last night as well for the yard and lawn stuff, as it was just mentioned earlier. So we'll take that into account. But the short is no, but I will consider it for sure. There's still a lot of this was the general concept of what the site plan has to be in order to be accommodating the grade, the flat surface that's needed for the size of the building. So there still will be some another presentation, if you will, more of a finished plan. This will all have to get blown up bigger, studied, and resolved. And the lawnmowers, definitely, yard equipment, maintenance equipment. I did put some maintenance equipment on the back here, but that might need to have to be bigger because of the amount of equipment you have.
Yeah, Dolores, we'll make sure, even with Gary, that we'll have more of a garage area back there. I'll really get a good handle on how many square feet, what we need, and we'll make sure that we've got a proper storage area. The main goal today is, so this is what I call site plan approval, and we're dealing with big blocks, big acreage, and how it lays out. And then hopefully next month we'll have what will be the interior drawings, where we really get to, okay, here's how the toilet lays out, here's the urinal, here, that's the next iteration. But we do it, this is, getting the big blocks down, the way it's all gonna lay out, that kind of thing. And then, we cut Jonathan loose. He's got a lot of really, and that's where he's gonna really shine, because the careful, this careful use of all your square feet is really critical. And so the next month, Jonathan's got a lot of work ahead of him, and we'll all kind of be involved. And we've got to, it's really an open door policy at the construction trailer, and people come in, just give their 2 cents every day, and then I get it out either in job notes or quick texts and phone calls. So it's really rapid dissemination of information, and then, so the way this will hopefully go down, if all this is good from a site plan standpoint, we can give Jonathan the green light. He'll dive into all that, and then simultaneously, kind of over the next 3 months, we'll be bidding, really honing into the budgets every single day, just working on every price we can. You know, if Jonathan draws me a glass wall that's, 80 by 30, I'm going to be out to the glass guys getting basic prices and getting that right back to Jonathan. Hey, your wall costs X, and then we'll be bringing it all together. And then what's happening is now we've got, say, $1 million for the housing, $1 million for the site, and I've got block big numbers attached to areas, and then we'll keep honing in on that as we go. And of course, as Jonathan, and it'll just be almost constant interaction, while that takes place. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just the last question is on the housing. This is a gift that keeps on giving. Is there a possibility of moving it closer toward the end of the
Oh yeah, the house.
rather than where it's located now up closer? I'd like to start it at the other end because
Yeah.
I'd really like to keep a cap on this as much as possible.
Yeah, that was just, so there's a kind of a note on there. We just showed 8 houses on there, and what it is again, I'm probably on Thursday and Friday this week, because what happened is it was so dense that we couldn't do layout back there. We couldn't even get around. And so we've had this guy, Frank Bono, that's working. He's been out there, I think, for 10 days now. We've probably taken out, at this stage, 25 loads of just debris and autumn olive and everything. So we're just getting to the point where we can really do a nice layout. And so the intention is to save as many trees as we can, to have a good buffer between Dollar General, like a buffer between Dollar General, a buffer to the going out to the private house. We don't want to be right in their backyard. A buffer against Chris Mart and the hardware store, and try to kind of center it, even a buffer to the thing. And then again, just have it, I envision, I know we're going to get it, because I've done this before. It's really, you just gotta, it'll show itself, right? You'll be in there and it'll just flow from here to here. We're going to have these 8 really lovely settings for every single house. That's where our goal is.
The other thing, I guess, I just want to make sure that we have good access for emergency vehicles. Since this is going to be for seniors, ambulance, I'm not sure if we want to contemplate maybe an emergency entrance or something.
No, you don't need that, but but that's all done in radius studies with our civil engineer, and so we got a big part of that is just if tight turns are what you don't want, and if you look on the site plan, you kind of see it's these groovy kind of big swoops, and that's what you want for getting all your emergency stuff in there.
What I like especially that you didn't talk a whole lot about is how they separated the outdoor amenities portion, which would be, let's call it for weddings, family reunions, parties, completely away from the senior housing. So that can be going on till midnight or whatever and not be disturbing any of the senior housing. So I really like that.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. I'll come back.
So do you, with your layout, if they want to add on to this, let's say we really get going on this, and they want to put a pool in,
Yes.
will you be able to do that with the plan the way it's laid out?
But a pool in.
But I can jump in on that
Yeah, go
one.
ahead.
There's a couple, there probably will never be a pool here per se. Like, I've got this fantasy that we get big money for a proper Olympic pool that allows the community to have an actual swim team. But that's going to be, pools are almost always attached to a high school unless you've got a lot of people, right? A community with 200, 300,000 people that can support it. So I wouldn't want to get your hopes up on the pool side, but expandability side, and again, it goes to the Aplex in Alpena, is that this has 3 zones of expansion. One is to the south where the eating area is. If you want more building, we can push that whole thing south. There's almost an acre of ground there. The other is to the southwest there, so the ACCOA owns a substantial amount of land there. It's dense, it drops off, but it still is usable. And then within the residential, if it turned out that it was something that somehow everything worked out smoothly and you wanted some more, which I say holds and make sure a good amount of time goes by to make sure everything goes smoothly, then there is expansion land there as well. And then and so that's kind of, you can't it's just a little bit light on there, but that was it was a thought always ever present in the design. You know, how can we have easy expandable areas? And we did the earthwork. So the earthwork was done to accommodate that now. You don't want to come back later for your expansion and have to do earthwork. That's a nightmare. So we've got the earthwork done for that expansion already. And you know, it's a darndest thing. I always say successful things tend to expand. That's a pretty good adage, you know, not always, but frequently. And so, yeah, I hope that in the future we are looking at that, you know.
I have a question for Andy, and we kind of talked about this before the meeting. The housing is strictly senior housing, right?
Absolutely, and so within that, there's a lot of subtleties that'll go into a senior-only house. And one of the things is having ADA approach to it without being ugly, right? So we're doing the grading, so you're going to slide in, meet your ADA requirements for a ramp, but in a very subtle, beautiful way. So you're not this big, gargantuan ramp in front of this little house. And then every aspect of the interior will be designed from like a handicap standpoint. So whether it's the bathroom cabinets, the kitchen cabinets, it'll be designed, so that the doors are a little wider and everything's easy to negotiate. And then, of course, having the attached garage is just a really helpful thing to get in, get in and out. And then we're going to design them to be resilient from day one, right? So that they're easy to clean, easy to maintain, easy to heat, and be as kind of danger-free as we can possibly design into it. So
Are you talking 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom?
So that's a discussion. I'll just be honest. One of the concerns of a 2-bedroom is that you could invite the relative that never leaves, right? But then the counterforce of that, I go to my dad, he snores like a freight train, and my mom really has to sleep in a separate room because she's a light sleeper. So, so go ahead.
I'll give you one other one real quickly in case you need a caregiver in the house. That's where, because I'm kind of just toying with a really goofy idea, maybe we should have something like a small apartment complex there just for relatives that have to wind up and come and do care. I'm just one of those things.
Yeah.
I'm not saying do it,
right.
But
So there's a discussion. I would say the 1 to 2 bedroom discussion is ongoing. Someone said last night maybe it'd be a good idea to have some 1s and some 2s. But I think that it just comes down to active management. I think in my mind, 2 bedrooms are just inherently nicer than a 1 bedroom, but at the same time, you're inviting that person who you're going to have a lot of good people, but sadly, there's going to be the knucklehead. And he's going to think, geez, I got a room over my head, and it's not costing me anything, and I just have to make some oatmeal in the morning, So I think that's just going to come down to good rules and administration. And, I think that my guess is always that it's, for the most part, going to go smooth. And from time to time, there's going to be a real problem. You're going to have to evict somebody. That's just the world we live in, And so I think that when the bad apple shows up, I wouldn't fret. It's just deal with it in the course of business and get them out of there. But we're going to put rules in place. And I think even the leasing and the interviewing process, you can do your best to not have a problem, but you just have, I can tell you through my years of I've been in plenty of eviction situations. It's just how the world flows. So I think we're going to have a lot of good people, but don't freak out when the problem happens. Just deal with it.
Now, who makes these rules and regulations? ACCOA?
Yeah, but I've got a lot of experience at that, and so I'm going to definitely be, Leroy and I and whomever will definitely, and another good one is Brad Cole, quite honestly. Yes. Brad's had a lot of experience, maybe even more than me on that front, and so we chatted quite a bit about it and how he deals with it, and a lot of it, so there's a notion in renting called quiet enjoyment, and it's just the idea that a landlord can't frequently hassle a tenant. But there's some reasonable boundaries there. And so a lot of it in the senior center, I think we're just going to have good rules. And one of the big ones I've always find is maintaining your outside. So you don't want a junkyard accumulating at all, and it's just going to be super clear. Junkyard shows up, it's towed immediately. And so now we're keeping the outside always looking good. And again, that is where it's in a from a maintenance standpoint, the ACC will be handling the exterior maintenance. And I always joke around when you go to a nice hotel and they fold down the sheet and give you a chocolate, it's not to give you the chocolate, it's to check on their room, right? And so that's the whole thing is it's going to take someone watching and just being smart, because you're going to have, I can just see it. It's going to be a legitimate evolution. A person's sick, the caregiver comes in, the caregiver can't be there all the time, they've got a job, so it seems legitimate for this other person to be popping in. But then we've got the boyfriend, the kid, and that, but again, it's not going to be problem-free, but it's a matter of if we've got 90% problem-free and just dealing with a little bit of hassle from time to time. I think that's what you got to kind of expect going in.
That's an expensive project too, though. When you have to evict somebody, you gotta hire a lawyer. It costs quite a lot of money.
Oh, no, you just get Guido.
No? It's
We got Phil, we don't have no problem.
I would just like to request, and it's a little bit late in the game now, but I think because the site plan approvals and what is going to be happening in the next month's meeting will be very important to have community support for. So I like the fact that our architect took questions during the presentation, and I know that that's not what the agenda is set out to do, but I think it would be important for maybe this board to vote that it would be okay for the people that are here to ask questions in the unusual circumstances like where we're talking about 1 to 2 bedrooms or all of those issues. I have a question about how many parking spaces there are, but I thought it was out of line for me to raise my hand when the architect, but if you guys would make that concession, that we consider this very important for community input, I think it would help get more support for people were there, people got to ask all the questions they wanted to, and I appreciate the fact that you answered questions, but I think it would be important for the board to take the position that it is appropriate for the people that have come to this meeting to be able to ask questions during the discussion rather than before I know what's going to be discussed or after all the votes have been taken. So just a suggestion.
Sure. What was your question on the parking?
So the parking, she had how many?
How many? I'd like to know, like.
There's, I think, I can't see.
And because.
It's 150, we're targeting 150 spaces. The front parking lot here has, I believe, 60. He's got my notes, but let's say 60 and then 90 in the back. So roughly, that's okay. We're good. But in general, that's the sort of the number we're targeting.
Okay.
We can expand that if we need to. So this is just the start of it. I don't want to over parking lot this place, just because I think it's prudent to be good stewards of pavement and money, which is what it ultimately boils down to. So I'd rather have the problem of putting more parking in the next year, but this will certainly accommodate what can. That if you take 2.5 people per car, you're at almost 400 people here. So that's kind of the number I was looking at. Obviously, there's one person per car, that kind of thing, but that's just giving you a number of how many people could be here.
And then on the parking lot, also a couple of key things is we kept it really flat. So it'll perceive to be flat, but it'll have a 1% grade to it. But that took a lot of effort. We had to do a lot of work to make sure. And one thing on a parking lot is if it's at a pitch in the weather, it's dangerous, right? And keeping it as flat as you can was a real important design criteria. And then the other thing is we kept big spaces. So you'll see some places that can be 8, 9 feet. All of our spaces are 10. It just makes getting out in and out a little easier. So all of our spaces are 10. Yeah, nice and wide. I can't stand now. Like I gotta get out of the car like that. And then the other thing is we kept all of our radiuses really soft. And so you don't want to have to like do and then turn it all the way to make a right turn. And so we kept the whole thing real flowy. And so those are all kind of like senior designs just to make the parking lot more enjoyable. Someone, unless you ever ask the question, no one would know. They just think, oh, it's easy to get in and out of here, you know, but there was a lot of design effort that went into that.
Well, now that I'm standing,
Yep.
and I'm not following the agenda to begin with, I think it would be very helpful. Like this meeting, I can't read anything that's up there. I can see the colors.
Yeah, sorry.
But if the next meeting is going to have more of the actual specifications and whatnot, it would be very helpful if the audience could get
Absolutely.
a copy of that. And then my one last question is, I come to the senior center by way of Walker Road from 23, and my impression of that distance from Walker Road over to Main Road next to coming into Lincoln, it is a hilly area, and particularly last Saturday when I was coming out of recycling, I made note of the fact that you can't really, the grade of that road is, to me, kind of dangerous for people coming out of where you're suggesting. I mean, I'm hoping that somebody's looking at what the site distance is coming out of the driveway, because there's a hill.
Yeah, that actually that drove the exact placement of it. And so, yeah, we had Bob Goodhart. He's not here, but he's really the best civil engineer I've worked with. And then he was, and I call him the grade police, right? Because he was checking all this kind of stuff. And so normally we would probably shoot for different kind of, if I had a flat site, we'd probably have different entrances in different locations. But he really won the day as far as picking the safest location and the safest design. And so, and again, it's not optimal. You wish kind of had like a bigger area, not as steep.
Flat area, but
yeah,
that's
but
not
and
that,
for what it is, I
that
feel
rough.
like we've got the safest entrance spot that we could come up with in that zone.
Okay, thank you.
I had a couple comments. We have over a year to set up rules and regulations and restrictions for the senior housing. So we have an abundance of time to do that. Just got a call in, an online caller, Mike Suter, our IT guy, says computer lab and Wi-Fi. He's available to consult at any time. Brad Cole, I don't know that you mentioned, has been contacted about advising on not only kitchen, laundry facilities such as that. One good thing at the senior housing, if like a lot of our seniors, they get direct care workers that come in and do services for them, the direct care workers will be able to evaluate, make sure they're keeping up the property inside, so it isn't like we're going to have to be sending in a monitor. They will be getting that also. And then, you know, I'm prepared to make a motion that we vote to support this site map. When we get into the public comment period, and you know, if every person speaks 5 to 10 minutes like you did, we're going to have to allow for quite a bit more time than at a meeting right now. So, but I'm prepared whenever we're done to make a motion that we approve this site plan.
I will second your motion if you don't mind.
I'd like to make one comment first. Since most people don't spend a lot of time looking at plans and drawings, I would like to point out that what you're looking at is a 1/40th scale. It's tiny. Now, in real life, that is big. There is a lot of space there. So it is kind of deceptive when you're looking at that drawing. Just understand that an architectural drawing is probably 1/8, so it'll be 5 times bigger than that. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at the site plan. Go ahead, Gary.
I'll second your motion, Bob, as long as we're approving this concept.
Correct.
Okay. Then I have a second.
Okay. So we have a motion to accept the site plan. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of accepting the site plan, say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Don't need a name,
Pardon?
don't need a name.
Do we need a roll call on this? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No, I think we're fine. Okay, motion passed. We accept the site plan.
I'd like to add one final thing. Andy has been on the job 2 months. Mr. Lee has been on the job 1 month. And we've already got this and a site approval done. So I think that's pretty fantastic. I'd like to thank both of them.
So at this point, thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We are blessed with one more speaker, Jimska.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I haven't met all of you. I'm the financial service analyst for Region 9 at NEMSCA.
Can we get her up?
You can. Talk quiet. You want me to just talk? I talk a lot. Okay. I'm Caitlin. I'm the financial service analyst at Region 9 NEMSCA. We just have a few updates. We have the close of fiscal year 2023 coming up at the end of September. We are starting the year-end closing process now, so any funds from 23 that need to be spent should be done soon, and any that will not be utilized, please notify us as soon as possible. For 24, the award notifications were just sent out. This notification was for the 1-year grants. This award is just an estimate. We will not have the final statement of grant award until the new fiscal year in October. You'll receive that from ACLS Bureau. Once they issue us our statement grant award, we will issue them to the subcontractors from there, and that will be the actual award amount for 2024. And last month, we were out here conducting the general in-home service and the fiscal assessment. We will have feedback letters to the board president and director very shortly within the next few weeks. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Yep. Thank you.
Anybody have any, do we ask the board members if you have any questions?
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm out one.
Okay. Anybody have a question of the board? Caitlin? Okay. Hearing none, we will move along. Okay. Normally this time we have the executive director's report. Wendy is not here right now, but Connie is sitting in.
Yes, Wendy left me her notes for me to walk through. Caitlin kind of touched on the statement award, grant award that we have currently.
Can you get closer? Let's get closer.
Yeah.
Just move it closer.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, the mic is better.
Yeah, you can move the mic. Yeah.
Okay, so what she has in her notes here is we were approved for additional grants above the statement of award grant. One is the kinship award for $4,500. We've got a respite grant award for $8,000. We've got a matter of balance for the seniors at $1,850, and the walk with ease at $900. So that's in addition to the statement award grant. Of course, we have many other fundings coming in, but that's above and beyond. Wendy has here that the non-emergency transport program had ended in June. All or some of the vehicles could be sold. I know there's been some recent discussion on, doing further investigation as to the financial sustainability of that program. So that may be on hold. Vehicles, it says, has expensive modifications for wheelchairs, and Dolores has worked with Alpona Motors to receive the Blue Book values that are that we're in the process of getting them listed to sell. Again, that might be on hold based on recent conversation of more involved, in-depth financial look at that program. Meyer Bucks, she says here that there's $18,839 remaining in Meyer Bucks. Recommend divided in the following way. She's got 3 listed here. One is the Harrisville UMC. Another one is the Lot Baptist Church. And the third one is the ACCOA Senior Hunger Boxes Pilot Program. So she's asking for how best to distribute those Meyer boxes, because we have them available. So we have discussion on that, and she says also, one of the most important things is she has filled the position for the in-home service coordinator. Her start date was August 14th. She's on board and working to catch up on what she needs to learn about the DCW workers, and she's been working with the staff very well, so we're really happy to have her on board. Wendy has also hired an LPN who is strictly doing the home assessments for all programs. That's key. She's going to reassess from the bottom up all of our clients to see what their needs are and how we can best help them. We also have a volunteer LPN who is helping with assessments. We're in the process of reassessing all clients, what I just said, to the fact that we have some non-compliant files. So we're working to bring them up so that they are compliant and that the clients have the service that they so desperately need. We have also hired a temporary RN until the position can be filled permanently. So we'll have her on board. She'll be signing and reviewing all of the assessments. She'll be also able to go out and do medications, fill the medications for the seniors. There's many different roles for the RN, but we do have someone on board now to help us fulfill that need. She's also actively interviewing DCW workers. We're looking to hire, I know she'd mentioned one full-time, 2 part-time, or as needed. We're finding that we now have a wait list, and that area is growing. We have clients that need our assistance, so we're looking to hire more DCW workers as well. The congregate meals, we've been bringing in roughly 10 to 15 guests each night for dinner. It has risen and it is growing. There seems to be a greater interest in coming in and joining us for dinner. And I know some of the staff here, the board members, have been working with doing extra activities for them to come in, such as they would have a drawing for a raffle or something like that. So it's been fun to see the activity in the dining room growing again. And then the last document that she has here is the Statement of Grant Award, which Caitlin had already touched on, has been granted for ACCOA. That's it for the Wendy's.
Thank you.
I have some comments. Actually, the actual truth is that every file that you found has been non-compliant, correct?
That is correct.
Not only the files that you found, but that NEMSCA came and did during their audit. There was no file that was not in compliance.
Caitlin can vouch for that if she's here. That is true. She was actually the auditor.
And in particular, you found a lot of problems with the patient assessments.
That is correct. And
People were doing assessments that were not authorized to do assessments.
Yes.
You had signatures that weren't correct, let's put it that way, from people who were supposed to be signing off that there wasn't. Not in-person assessments were being done. Phone assessments were being done. So Wendy and you and the staff are uncovering all these things, and now LPN will be doing the assessments from now on, and then RN will be signing off on things. Back into compliance, the things that the NEMSCA people, our friends, tell us that should have been done all along.
Correct. We're following procedure for the NEMSCA requirement, as well as Michigan Department of Health and Human Services as well. They have the same requirements, so it's important that we fulfill both of those, because that's our funding for ACCA.
Well, let's talk about that since you brought that up. Come to find out, going back to last September, MDHHS had suspended ACCOA.
That is correct.
And they did that mainly because a person, a former employee, had put his or her personal information in, personal name, phone number, personal address, in the CHAMPS website.
That's correct, and that's against the CHAMPS and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Service policy and procedure.
So everything, there was 5 clients that we have not been able to get, and by the way, MDHHS had contacted us to try to correct that with no response, correct?
Prior to our new staff coming on board, that is correct.
Correct. And so what you're doing is finding that 5 patients have not been billed at all, going back to last September, correct?
That's correct. ACCOA has been paying for the service and diligently doing the services, along with the premium pay that we were paying out for our DCW workers. However, we were not receiving the funds back from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
And that's going back to last September.
Last September, and yes, and in speaking with their management team there, they're more than willing, now that they've got a new team that is, I'm working to rectify within CHAMPS that information, so it's now going to be correct and compliant per their procedures. They're going to work with ACCOA and go back all the way to September and maybe even further back to get us the funds that we have missed out on. So we will be getting all that funding.
And so the interesting thing also is that when you tried to correct that and correct the information that was in violation, you also found that Dolores's name was put in there, unbeknownst to her, and a completely fictitious Social Security number.
Right.
It wasn't Dolores's, so that's delaying you. You had to have Dolores send that in
Yes.
also.
Yeah, that delayed us 5 days, and then now they want it on a letterhead as well to confirm that our new team is a legitimate team. And so Dolores has been working with me to get CHAMPS on board, and so we become compliant with their procedures. That's correct.
But what's interesting, getting into what you're doing, we'll talk about in the budget process, that in 2021 to 22 fiscal year, the ACCOA budget had $35,000 coming in from MDHHS.
Yes, that was on the.
But in the 2022-23, that had been put as zero, almost like somebody knew we're not going to get any money from MDHHS.
Yes.
But that's not true. We just didn't bill MDHHS.
That is correct. It was, I discovered that by going back to 2020. That's correct.
So you're fairly optimistic that maybe $35,000 you
Yes.
might be able to recover?
Yes, yes. Maybe a little bit more because it was the following fiscal year, and they usually grant us more as the years go on because of.
Yeah. So we were paying our employees, but weren't getting reimbursed for that. And same for the premium pay for our direct care workers. We were paying our employees, but we're not billing that out, not getting reimbursed.
That is correct.
We'll talk about more about when we get into the budget and finance committee. There's much more.
Just one quick question on the kinship. I know it's about 3 times the amount that's stated here in the previous report.
Well, that grant that I was talking about for the kinship, the 4,500 is above and beyond.
But I mean, last time it was reported that we had spent like 1,500 or charged
Yeah, but
for 15,000. I mean, rather than.
yes, that's above and beyond. And we also received, go ahead, I can see
That
you want
is
to talk.
the award notification for next fiscal year, for
Yes, for
2024.
next
That,
fiscal year.
yep. For the request for proposal, they requested more funds this year, and that's what they were awarded. So it was more than last.
So it's above and beyond.
That was above and beyond what was required. That's the point I wanted to get to.
Yes.
Depending on the request for proposal process, yes.
I wanted to talk about the Meyer box also. Well, come to find out that not only do we have the nearly $20,000 in Meyer box, but we have an account at Huron that has $24,000 something that Rollins Treasurer's Report put in there. So I think what they're finding over the last month that the team has been working, they're finding that I don't know that we can trust most numbers that we've been given for their accuracy. So essentially, we still have $50,000 or 40-some thousand dollars in food bank funds. We found, at least you found a grant that was approved, but the funds were never recouped.
Right, we just received that check.
You have found all the things that NIMSCA, that you had to fill out more, 100 different reports that were overdue going back to last September. So you're expecting funds from them. So I think we have to reevaluate how much money we really have. And so some of these decisions with the food bank and the non-emergency medical transport, I'd like to give our team a month or so to take a look at these numbers before we make any more decisions for certainly getting rid of the transport vehicles. Unless there's another person, a church or whatever, who wants to take over that program, I say let's give them a month to sort this thing out. They're finding money, like I said, it wasn't billed, figures that don't match up. So we'll talk more about it in the finance committee.
I have a question, Connie. Did they ever find the physical Meyer Bucks cards?
According to Wendy's notes,
They thought they might be in one of the offices downstairs when we were checking on it, but they didn't have time to look at that time.
I would be guessing, based on her notes, she must have found them to include them, or I don't think she would have added that in.
They thought they
but I
might
don't
be in
know.
a safety deposit box or something.
That's
So-
where they were kept at HCV. They were in a safety deposit box.
So they know where they're at then?
I will ask, I'll double check with Wendy.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
I would like to make one comment, though. It's just astounding to me that, we see everything that our new team has discovered. Just the fact that ACCOA was able to survive that. Can you imagine what it's going to be 6 months from now when we have people who actually know what they're doing?
That's her tagline, 6 months from now.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my comment. So.
Well, we thank you too. We know
Yes.
you've been putting in a lot of work.
Okay. Moving on down the list here. Doris, do you have anything at the...
Yes, I have a couple comments. First of all, we did the gate for the fair on Tuesday, and we did very, very good. We got $519 was our share of the gate. So I want to thank everybody that helped at the gate. Judy, my daughter Judy, and Sharon, I'm not sure Sharon's last name.
She's over there.
Sharon sat there, Rollin and Pam McKinnon. I thought I seen Pam, yes. And Wendy and Connie went up, and Hope, one of the meal drivers, and myself. And then we had Freeman come up, and Freeman brought his clown outfit with the big hair and the big shoes. And I wasn't here then, but everybody told me that was a big hit. And so we thank all of you for this. This is just $500 that come in our pocket, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate everybody. And it was kind of hot that day, but we did real well. So thank all of you. We appreciate it.
Does that conclude yours?
Yes, but I have one question. We got to start our new board member thing. That should be going on now. It's supposed to be announced in July, if I'm not mistaken, and then something done in August and September. They have to have. I'll have to read the book again.
Well, we have ads out before the
Right, but there's.
board members.
we can check into that, okay? Because there is something we gotta do.
Tomorrow is the last deadline for candidates for the open board position.
Okay, and I'll double check when I get back from the meal run, because I gotta do that yet. But there is something that we should be doing each month. So I'm not sure what it is. I'll have to.
We had to form the nomination committee, which we did.
Yes.
We put a deadline for requesting nominations, which tomorrow is the deadline, and then the election will take place. Not through, I believe it's the last Wednesday in September.
Okay, I'll look to see what
Well,
I'm thinking.
that comes under our heading, I believe. It's,
The nominating committee.
yeah, which,
Okay.
But yeah, if we're missing something,
Okay.
let us know.
Okay. Let's see. Roland, you have a treasurer's report.
Can everybody hear me?
Question we get, I was gonna make a comment. I think all you need to be trained is when you're talking.
I'm sorry,
How to
wait.
talk.
I'm sorry.
Microphone.
Point of order. We'll have comments afterwards. Thank you. Go ahead, Roland.
Okay, revenues, program, income is donations, 14,870. Millage, property tax, renewal, 32,000, and total 46,870. Is that better? Expenses, 43,000, $4.41. Net income, $3,865.59. That's it?
Include your report.
There should be a treasurer's report in there also. Did it not get put into your book?
I thought that was, okay, thank you. New York Life Investment Funds, $604,021.69. Huron Community Bank, Food Bank, Lincoln Funds, $24,474.59. Huron Community Bank Operating Funds, $848,073.02, with a total of $1,476,569.30. That's it.
Thank you, Roland. I think now we move on to.
I'm going to add a few things to that. The New York Life investment funds previously were at Edward Jones. They were moved, as we discussed in one of our previous meetings, several meetings. We were going to move those to New York Life. That's the exact amount that was moved from Edward Jones. We did that mainly based upon the knowledge that our last audit or financial audit showed that the previous administration had lost $173,000 by being invested in the stock market. This board said, no, we're going to move these to a different place in a different vehicle, so we will not lose any money. So that's where that money is. The Edward Jones accounts might still be open, they might be closed, but the funds are still there, they've been moved. And the other thing, the Huron Community Bank operating funds, keep in mind, there are some expenses that weren't reflected in that total, and that has to last us up until we get millage again next February or March, or God forbid if it's May again, that amount has to last us until that time. But we're clearly not broke, as has been put out there.
point of order, do we have to accept the treasurer's report?
Yes, we should. Thank you, Gary. Okay. Let's see.
Need a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion to accept the treasurer's report. You want to make that motion, Roland?
I make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Subject to audit.
What?
Subject to audit.
Subject to audit.
I'll second that.
I'll do too.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question. The new building project, is that going to be reflected on the treasurer's report from now on, or how is that going to be maintained? Because I know that we got to watch that as well.
Yeah, I think that's.
I think it can be whatever the board wants. Now, I know Connie has been talking to Andy about once we kind of get our regular budget, ACCOA budget sorted out, and when she's not having to spend so much time uncovering things that haven't been done right, that he's going to get with her and they're going to set up not only the building project budget, but, you know, we can do all of that. It depends. So obviously there's still, you know, $6 million in that, the building funds or something thereabouts.
And I understand that that's going to be a separate account and everything totally separated.
Yeah, certainly it's in a separate New York Life account, but now we're also using AAA Credit Union as for building expenses also. But because Andy was so good and got started so quick, the accounting hadn't been set up right, so we kind of had to shift some funds around. But hopefully, I just talked to Patty this morning, starting the new fiscal year, October 1st, everything will be kind of cleared up.
Again, I'm going back to my question, should that in the future be included on the treasurer's report?
Up to the board.
Yeah, we'll decide that it might be a totally separate report. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion to accept the treasurer's report? Okay. All in favor? We need a roll call for that.
Yeah.
Lynch,
Yes.
Weinar,
Yes.
Potter,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Schlicker,
Yes.
Baduk,
Yes.
Turek, yes.
Okay. That is accepted. So move on to Mr. Secretary. You have your report.
Oh, I have several things.
I thought so.
In dealing with the Finance Committee and Connie mainly trying to get the budget, we're trying to look at some of the expenses that to see what they have been in previous years and what she can do a lot for next year. And so I undertook to see what our insurance bills have been for the last 5 years to try to get a handle on that and what she has to budget for next year. And so I contacted the insurance company and I found that from last year to this year, our insurance premium has only gone up 1%. Back in from 2019 to 2020, our insurance premium went up 26%. From 2020 to 2021, it went up 43%. And from 21 to 22 is 13%. So looking at that, I'm pretty happy, and that makes sense because we haven't been sued. We have no lawsuits pending against the ACCOA. But even if we did, that's why we have an insurance company. So, but it's kind of good that we can pass that on, and now that we know, you know, that our insurance has not gone up but 1% from last year. Like I said, there's no lawsuits. There was another question that I'm seeing that somebody said that the board is like rodents leaving a sinking ship. There has been no new resignations on the board. The 3 positions that are up, there are 3 positions every year that come up for election. And that would be Stan's position, Phil's position, and Dolores' position. That's every year. Every year there's 3 positions. There's been no new resignations. Subsequent couple months ago there was. One of them was Wendy resigned to take the executive director. So there'll be 5 positions open, 3 every year that are open. It's interesting, we were talking about the executive director in the president's report, where we have in the past ratified executive committee actions. Well, the executive committee actions are right in our bylaws that if things come up between meetings, the executive committee makes these decisions. and then the board has to ratify them. So every decision that this board makes is ratified by the entire board. There's no decisions that are made in the dark, in a back room. Every decision is ratified by this board. I have to look back, and I undertook looking back in the last minutes for the last 3 years, there hasn't been a single time when the board, the executive committee, made a decision in between meetings. And I wonder, how does that happen, that no decision needs to be made in between meetings? Gary?
Just a quick question. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do have a question. So then you're saying that the property purchase that was done a year ago, September, was only, from what I understand, done by phone call outside the board, never brought to the board to be ratified. Is that correct?
But correct. It was a meeting. It was they call it round the table discussion. That was not a legal meeting. There was similarly a meeting that was undertaken to pay off a phone contract with a phone provider. That also wasn't a legal meeting. Now the property, as long as that was below $10,000, that executive director had the ability to spend up to $10,000. The phone contract that was settled was way more than $10,000. That was not authorized in a meeting, and that was above the credit line. But in any case, I wonder how did those boards get along for the last 3 years without making a single board decision in between board meetings? Inconceivable. Was the board president making them by himself without consulting the rest of the board? Were board decisions being made by the executive director? I don't know, but it's certainly not abnormal for the executive committee, it's right in our bylaws, to make decisions in between our regularly scheduled meetings. And
I can explain one of them.
I'm sorry?
I can explain one of them that happened. I got a phone call one day, and I was in Alpena, about the property in Harrisville. How do you want to vote? Do you want to buy it or don't you want to buy it? And I said, no, I want to go down as no. Another person that was on the board said, I want to think about it. But at the end of the day, he put everybody down as a yes, except me. At the meeting, I said, we have to bring that up and vote on it in a public meeting. He says, it's all right here on paper. I already wrote it down, and he handed it to the girl that was taking the minutes, and that was the end of it.
Well, the other thing, looking back at the audit, we know that the audit showed $173,000 lost in the stock market. The audit also showed that more than $40,000 was missing. So, had come to find out, that's an explanation of why this board undertook the internal controls audit based upon the financial audit. So some of this has not been released to the public, but I think we're going to release a lot of things today. We'll talk about more things in the finance committee meeting. That's my.
Okay. We need a motion to accept the secretary's report.
Make that motion.
Okay, we have a
I'll
motion.
second it.
And we have a second. Okay. Any discussion?
I don't ever remember accepting the secretary's report. Are we supposed to?
I don't think we
I don't think we have.
Never have.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Okay. Moving right along. Normally we have program reports. I think at this time, I don't know if we have any, since there's been a lot of changes and do you know of any kind? Program reports? Okay. We'll go on over those then. Okay, and then I guess it'd be Connie, the financial report.
Okay, ACCOA has completed and balanced the fiscal year 23-24 budget. The financial committee will meet one more time in September for final review. And then the budget will be sent to the commissioner for final approval. Is that correct, Carolyn?
Finance committee will approve it, then it'll go to the full board to approve, and then
Okay.
we present it to the commissioner.
Okay. I'll add that into the process then. The building, we've touched a little bit on this. The building budget will begin in about, talking to Andy, 2 to 3 months. We did meet once already. As he had mentioned in the meeting today, There will be negotiations going on, so it's really impossible to project a budget when the negotiations are still going on. We don't know who the folks are even gonna be, that are gonna be hired. He's negotiating all that information, so, and along with the amounts as well. So really, we can't do much about the building budget until that occurs.
Correct.
Gary?
No, the only thing I was just looking for is keeping track of the money being currently spent.
Yes.
I'm not looking for a full-blown budget to be part of the treasurer's report. It's just, we spent X amount of dollars this month. If you know what I'm getting at.
Yes.
I'm not looking for who or what we're projecting to spend. I'm just,
What we have spent so far has been diligent.
because I want it to be, considering all the shenanigans that have gone on in the past, I think this board needs to see those figures.
That's a very good observation. I can report that Patty has done a diligent job in tracking every invoice and receipt that has been spent on the building to date. She has that book. I know the board would be welcome to look at that at any given time. Transparency is key here, and I do know that, and she shares that information with me as well. Some of the spreadsheets have been shared with the financial committee on the building, so we know exactly where we're at, what we've spent so far.
And we know that, and we appreciate your diligence, and I'm not casting aspersions.
Yes.
But I just want to make
Make
known
sure.
that we are keeping all this stuff above board.
I think that's a very, very good observation and very good comment. So yes, that is being done. The budget snapshot, we project for the month of July 2023, $416,182 shortfall. That is only due to $347,800 is due to the new building. That amount is going to be reconciled September 1st, so that shortfall will go away. It was only due that it was charged to the 04 GL code, and we're going to change that, so we won't be seeing that in the future. That leaves a balance of $68,000, but as we've been talking about in this meeting, ACC will have funds received by the end of fiscal year, September 31st, from both NEMSCA and MDHHS. We're anticipating that to be taken care of and reconciled with both of our funding agencies. The deliverables for NEMSCA, I have this list that I reported a couple months ago. There was a list of 15 items that were due to both NEMSCA and Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. All of those requirements have been fulfilled. All the reporting has been sent to Caitlin. We bombarded her with information going back from current all the way back to October of last year. So she's been very busy and working very diligently with me, and we really appreciate you, Caitlin, for helping me. And as well as the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. They reassured us that ACCOA will receive every pennies once we get the CHAMPS software updated and correct in the system, that we will be receiving every penny that we have spent on DCW workers, the services, and the premium pay that is due. And the same goes for NEMSCA. So we appreciate them. Tomorrow, Carolyn and Amber from NEMSCA will be visiting us. They want to do a meet and greet with our new staff. Also, they'll be interacting. We share clients in their care between ACCOA and NEMSCA, and they will be collaborating with our new staff, which is something that hasn't occurred for a while. They're very happy with who we got on staff now. They believe that it's going to be a new team that they can actively work with, and they're very excited to come tomorrow and make that happen. And it has not happened in a while. So everything through NEMSCA has been delivered, except for we still have to do the fire drill. Wendy's working with, I understand she's got to work with the fire department to make that happen. So that's the last thing on our list for us to complete. I have turned in a report for the cash match on the generator, and like I said, we've bombarded Caitlin, so it may be a while before we receive those funds, but they're in the works. Is there any other questions that anybody has for me?
Well, they have questions, but I think it sounds like everybody at NEMSCA has been more than bending over backwards.
The whole team.
They understand what went on, they understand what you guys are trying to do, and they've been more than accommodating.
Yeah, we really appreciate them. They've worked with us diligently. Caitlin's always available for my phone calls. They've been very helpful, along with, also I might add, Alpena Senior Center, their finance, Lillian has been very helpful with me, getting me on board and making sure that we're doing everything correctly and making sure that we're submitting our documentation to NEMSCA per their procedures.
I mean, it seems inexplicable to me that since NEMSCA gives us almost a quarter of our total budget, it seems like talking to you and Wendy, as well as one of the drivers who a NEMSCA representative went on a drive with, that there was this feeling of hostility, almost don't come and watch us, we don't want to get supervision from you, don't tell us how to fill out forms. Is that correct?
That's correct. They said that they felt like they were the enemy to ACCOA instead of being the funding agency that is helping our seniors.
I have a question. On the direct care workers, you said earlier that we quit receiving funds due to a flag went up, or that it was in a personal account?
Yes.
And so is that the reason that it wasn't an ACCOA account, it was a personal informational account that payment stopped? So it'd be...
It threw up a red flag for Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, all right.
It threw up a red flag and they suspended our payment.
So it wasn't going into our account, and it wasn't because anything this board had done, it was due to a personal account instead of ACCOA account.
That is correct.
And that was back in September.
September of 2022.
It'll just be interesting to see if when you ask them or ask other people, if you can go back further and try to pursue funds that maybe not have, just because they go back to 1st of October, that doesn't mean it wasn't a year before, for instance.
Michigan Department of Health and Human Services said they would be willing to look at that, and then I'll talk to NEMSCA and see if that's possible. Carolyn had brought that up in the previous meeting, so that is on our radar to request.
I have a question, Connie. If that was in his personal name, why did he need my name on it?
I believe it's part of, so it's part of their policy and procedure to have two names on there as a check system. Unfortunately, if you weren't aware of it, it wasn't much of a check system. In the future, we will have two names on there so that both people can be looking at it, and so this situation does not occur for us, so that we can continue to receive the funding.
Well, shouldn't they have checked into my social security number and found out that something's not adding up here? Because the social security number that he put on there was not my social security number.
That's correct. I believe there's a certain amount of trust that our agency was doing the right thing, and so that's how it kind of slipped through the cracks, per se. It wasn't until I tried to rectify the current situation and got into the software that we discovered that that had also occurred.
Well, I'm glad you did.
I'm sorry, I guess I got a question as well. Now, we always haven't had a division between NEMSCO and us. I remember back in the December meeting that we were through last year, when it came down to this public housing thing that we were going to build, there seemed to be a lot of support from certain factions of NEMSCO on that. Can that be elaborated on?
I can. I got a letter from somebody, an email from somebody in Nemska that one day saying that they were in support of the housing and how it was needed, and that Alcona County had lost 700 homes in the last decade. And I started thinking, 700 homes in the last decade? How did we lose 700 homes? That's 70 homes a year. Is that through fires? Is that what? It didn't add up. And have I had time to check into that to see where the source of that information is? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't pass the test, my common sense test, that Alcona County has lost 700 homes in the last decade. I'll be curious to see that study.
I think you can put that up against the Shaw research study and see it's a little bit different. So, moving on. Any other questions of Connie?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will make one comment, is that I am truly excited about the future of ACCOA in light of what our new staff has accomplished. I'm just truly amazed, and I think it's going to be really great.
I'll add to that. Wendy has a NEMSCA booklet, their guidelines. She says she goes to sleep every night with that. That's her good night reading. And everything that NEMSCO wants is going to be done the way they want it. So I don't see why we would want to buck them. I don't see why we would fight them when they're giving us a quarter of our income.
I guess I've got one other thing I'd like to bring about. Connie, roughly how much extra time have you been putting in over 40 hours to assemble all this stuff? You don't have to give an exact number, but
Approximately, I'm going to say 10 hours a week, but we have a whole team down there that is working with us. We're all on the same team. Everybody's working together. Wendy now has a full staff that will be growing with us. So it's an exciting time to be a part of it. And the need for our services is so great in this community. Like I said, we have a wait list. Hopefully we can get more DCW workers. We're just going to grow because of the need. It's an exciting time.
I would like to also comment, just coming in, and I come in every day to do the meal run, the whole atmosphere is so much better. We don't feel like we have to walk on eggshells. We can laugh, we can talk, we tease each other, we give each other a hard time. It is just 100% better than it was a year ago. 100% better.
I'd just like to add that transparency to the board, I think, is key, and they've been very supportive of what we're trying to do to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to get more people to come and eat though.
Yes.
Yeah, the food's good.
And we're going to have a beautiful building soon to be
Yes.
enjoying as well. So.
Okay. Well, moving on here. Any committee reports? Report from the Finance Committee?
I'll start with nominating committee. Like I said, tomorrow is the last day for candidates for the open board positions, so we have that, and then we'll get together and run the election just like we did probably back in March or April. I thought it worked perfect. And finance committee, Connie is just working fantastically. We will have a balanced budget to the Finance Committee sometime in February, or sometime in September, which then we as the board can vote on it, and then go to the commissioners at their first week in October. All of that is how it's supposed to have been done and how it was not done in the past.
We really loaded the GLs too, so that it's very clear to read and walk through, so you can see everything where every dollar amount was allotted.
And so I think what Connie is also going to be working on, as we talked about at the Finance Committee, setting aside money in a reserve fund for a boiler that breaks, a roof leak, things like that. So she's going in the next couple of weeks kind of getting into that, like fundraising, like if Phil wants to $50 for a cornhole tournament, he takes it out of that and then the proceeds go back into that fund. If Dolores needs $100 to make a banner, for the fair, it comes out of fundraising and then fund, just simple things like that. But I think she's kind of dialing down into how much of each of these employee compensation, bonuses, raises, employee retention, making funds for that it'll come out of that, and she's allotting for that in the budget. So it's going to be fantastic.
Can I interrupt 1 second? I was supposed to ask if any of us was gonna stay to eat. And I'm gonna ask Judy if she'll go down and tell them, how many of us is there?
Rosie.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, so we'll move on to the unfinished business. And first up is Harrisville property taxes and sale.
I did send a letter to the Harrisville treasurer just saying that we're undergoing the appeal or the review process to see if, because of our 501c3 status, that they will remove the tax bill. So I did send them a letter on it.
And I got hold of John Kowalski, who was in, he's like, I believe it's North 45 Realty. I talked to the gentleman that wanted the property. He said that if he could break it up, he would take it. If the taxes were lower, he would consider it. But I told him he couldn't break it up, and we missed the tax review board because we had that meeting. And I said, right now, no and no. We didn't get the taxes lowered at this time. At the present time, I talked to him. So I called John, and John said he would be more than happy to put a sign out there to list it on real estate. He gets no money to list it, absolutely zero. He puts the sign out. He said he was going to list it for $19,900, and you can always come down. They just sold property north of that for $25,000, I believe he said, for 5 acres. This is 2.1. He said it's a great location to possibly sell, if the taxes are lowered. He said the only time he'll get his money is if he sells it, and that's the commission on the real estate. So he did list it, and it is listed on all over the place. So that is where we are on that property. It's out on the market, so if anybody knows of. And it is a lot less than what they have it assessed at or evaluated at.
Yeah.
It's evaluated at $133,000, so $109,000 for one piece and $24,000 for the other. And he said he wants it. We're going to sell it for $19,900, so that's what he's got listed as.
Someone's been drunk with this.
So anyway, that's all I have on that property. I've been waiting to hear from him, and I'm hoping that we have a buyer.
Okay. Well, next item is the sale of the non-emergency medical transportation vehicles. I think we decided we're going to hold off on that for a little while.
Well, I was going over, and we talked with Connie and Wendy about this. I was going over the article that was in the review with Denise Trolfo back in May 31st. And the numbers, well, first of all, the transportation program never made money. Anybody who said that it made money is mistaken, sadly mistaken. How much money it lost, we're going to try to determine that. So I would ask the board to hold off on selling the transportation vehicles, to give the team 1 or 2 more months to kind of look at, see if they're finding so many things wrong. I doubt every number that we've been presented, whether it's true, without giving them a chance to examine and see how much we were losing on that program.
guess I'm sorry, but my feeling is and this is what I'm thinking through. You know, we are the Alcona County Senior Center. We're not the Department of Transportation for Alcona County. Now, if there's some other group that wants to assume this stuff, I'd be more than willing to work with them to taking over these vehicles. If they can make a profit, a profit, or at least be able to run the service for this county. What I'm struggling with is why we would want the liability of having a transportation system, and again, backing it up to the senior center. If there's somebody, and I've heard rumor that there is somebody that wants to do it locally, that would provide, would use one of our vehicles, the lift vehicle, might be interested in doing it through their organization. And to me, I don't think ACCOA needs its moniker on everything that's done in Alcona County. We have a need for a system, but it doesn't need to come out of this group. This group is supposed to be focused on seniors.
Well, that was one of the problems with the program, that it was supposed to have been seniors from Alcona County. We were doing anybody and everybody from anywhere. And that was one of the major problems that we had. I think it is something that needs to be looked into. For seniors, unfortunately, there is a great need, seniors that need transportation and things like dialysis or doctor's appointments and whatever. And I think it would be worth looking into and checking further into it.
I did talk to Brad Cole. He was very interested in the bus, but he's kind of changing his mind now because he's got a lot of irons in the fire right now. He's starting a new store in West Branch. But he did say that we should advertise the bus, try to get as much as we possibly can. And if it doesn't sell in a couple of months, then he will reconsider purchasing it. But I'm wondering if we want to keep them all, can we drop some insurance? Like on the bus and maybe the Big Bird, can we just drop that insurance? That save us a little bit of money, and we never take them on the road. So
I can check on that. I'd be willing to check on that. Wendy's on vacation, so I mean, I'll check on that. I think it's two different points, and I happen to agree with Gary that there's no scenario where we are authorized to use millage funds to provide services to non-Alcona County seniors and not people who are not seniors. So that there's no scenario where that could be done. Could there be a scenario where non-millage funds are used to provide transportation for Alcona seniors? Yeah, in theory that can work. What happens when we build the community center? Do we want to have a transportation system to bring seniors in? I know congregate meals or home delivered meals is quite an expense. Is it going to be more of an expense for us to go out and pick up seniors who want to come to the activity center, who want to do things at the senior center? I don't know, but all I would say is if there was another group that wanted to take over and didn't have the restrictions that we did, if they want to do ACCOA, if they want to do people who are less than 60, I'm all in favor of that. But absent that, I would just not want to rush to selling those vehicles until we give our team a chance to look. That's my point.
Any other comments?
Are we going to advertise locally also? Like in Tawas, Ascota, Alpena, and even Harrisville? Are we going to advertise these vehicles
I think at
locally?
this point, we're not going to advertise them yet. We're going to give the executive director and finance a chance to look it over and come up with a plan.
But because I'd like to give them a chance, I know you, Leroy, and Susan Cray talked to the people who pay for transportation up in Alpena. What group was it? And they were paying the people up in Alpena $3 a mile or something like that, and we were getting paid 85 cents a mile, something like that.
Yeah.
I'd like to have them follow up on that and see if part of the reason why that program lost money, and it did lose money all the time, did we negotiate an inferior rate of mileage reimbursement? I'm just curious. I'd like to give them a month to check on that.
Yeah, what happened, we just took their offer, what they told, they'd pay us and didn't even try to negotiate, so, which was wrong. Okay. Any other comments on that one? Okay, with unfinished business, we have employee handbook. Is there someone addressing that?
I know, I went over the whole employee handbook, and it sounds like, what I saw compared to the old employee handbook, it's just amazing. I know Wendy said she talked to somebody at NEMSCA during the audits, and they said that our previous employee handbook was miserable, to say the least. Susan Cray brought this up in her March report to us, that that was a high priority, we need to fix that. So Wendy made up the new employee handbook. I looked at it. She is going to make a few changes and then pass it on to NEMSCA, who they requested looking at it beforehand. But part of the employee handbook is also going to consider something else that Susan Cray brought up, which was the paid time off. Do we need to adapt that? Do we need to improve that? Apparently, we have an employee, at least one employee, that started when the paid time off was one schedule, and now it's a different schedule, so that people who started way after her are getting paid time off, and she's not. Well, you know, that's unacceptable. So Wendy is not only trying to deal with that in the future, but correct that for that employee, because that's just not fair. It doesn't make sense. So that employee handbook is going to, once that gets done, maybe it'll be before us for a vote next month, that's going to check off two of the boxes that Susan Cray said we really needed to take a look at. That paid time off, making them Alcona positions, the ACCOA positions, back to where it was before, making it a desirable job. You know, I mean, 17 employees left before this board was seated. Why? Was it all because of money? Was it because of personnel problems? Was it because we weren't paying enough? Was it because our retirement plan wasn't enough? That's the kind of thing Wendy's looking at, and this employee handbook is a huge start towards that.
If I may, on the employee handbook, I've looked it over. I have a few issues with it. I'd like to sit down and discuss them at some point. And I don't want to drag this meeting out any further, so I will not bring up my concerns at this point.
Okay. Well, Wendy is looking for input on that, so as soon as she's back. Okay, moving on to new business, we have down here an appointment of a delegate to Region 9 AAA.
Kim Fleming, for the former board member, now working part-time, has volunteered to fill that open position with the Region 9 Area Agency on Aging. So I printed out some of the information that they sent, so she volunteered, and that would be, we're extremely lucky if she does that, if she wants to do that.
Do we have to vote on that?
I think it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I would think.
Okay, so anybody have a motion to appoint?
I would make a motion to appoint Kim Fleming as the ACCOA representative to the Region 9 Area Agency on Aging.
I will second that motion.
Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I would like to ask, she's an employee, is she gonna be on company time to go to these meetings, or is this a volunteer thing on her part?
I would assume it's going to be paid. And since this position has been open and I haven't seen anybody on the board really stepping up, I think it's to have a former board member fill in that position.
We used to.
Worth the money,
Okay.
whatever we
Okay.
pay her.
I was on that one several years ago, and the only pay that you get is all volunteer. The only pay you get is you submit a mileage form to NEMSCA, you get paid for your mileage. That's the only thing that I know of. I could be wrong, things do change.
So,
And I think if you hire, she has to go up there, she's going to get the same pay as what she would get if she was here full-time.
well, Kim right now is a part-time employee, and I agree with Bob. I think it's worthy to pay her to be our delegate.
She might not request it, for all I know. I mean, she volunteered, maybe, I believe before, after she was a board member, then she went to that position for a while also, didn't she, before she resigned?
While she was a board member,
While she
did
was a
it.
board member.
Yes, voluntarily.
Yeah, I'll come right out and say, to have a former board member who resigned under, if you read her resignation letter, I don't know if any of you did, very sad why she
Right.
resigned. To have her want to come back in and work now and go back there, that's fantastic.
But we should make sure that she understands what it's gonna be, one way or the other. Is it a volunteer or is it paid? We should, somebody can talk to her. But I agree, she would be very good at it. And I wouldn't have a problem at all paying her to go to these meetings.
I would ask Dr. Turek if he'd amend his motion. We can offer to pay her. If she chooses to decline it, that's fine.
I would amend it.
Then I would, and my second still holds.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, so all in favor of appointing Kim Fleming?
Need a
your
roll call
delegate?
here. Roll call, I guess.
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We will have Kim as our delegate. Oh, okay.
Just a quick, for the public's information and the seniors' information, Lorna over at the credit union contacted Wendy, and they set up a meeting. They want to do a seminar on credit card frauds and scams to the seniors. And she wants to have the sheriff department involved, and she wants to try to get a state trooper involved. And it'll be open to the public. So I think it's a great idea that Lauren came up with, because there's so many scams and so many credit card frauds going on right now that the seniors are getting hammered. So just so everybody knows that I believe, did she tell you the date? September?
She did not.
September 15th, I want to say, but it's in September, so what I recommended was to put letters into the meals and letters on the tables, so people can get it. So
Yes, I asked about how we can send out that information. Okay.
Lauren and Wendy both have.
Okay. Well, any other new business? Okay, and that will bring us to our time for public comments. Once again, time is limited to 2 minutes. If you'd like to comment, state your name and where you live. Welcome to comment. Okay.
Judy French, Harrisville Township. I just want to say that this last year has been a roller coaster. Okay, this all pretty much started a year ago where the community started seeing a problem. And once the community got involved and started coming and people stepped up to the plate to get involved, it's taken time, but I am so happy to see that my grandmother's legacy, my grandmother started ACCOA, and I am so happy to see that her legacy is going to continue, and it's going to do what she started it for, which is for the seniors.
Amen.
And I just thank our current board, and I am so glad that we've got somebody who's digging into numbers and finding issues and getting things corrected and saving the senior center. So thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say one.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Kenny, you were first.
Well, go ahead.
Patty Thomas, Harrisville Township. I'd like to request that the board give some consideration to when the proposals for the diagrams and the construction is presented at a board meeting for a vote, that you include at least, the drawing that is being presented at that meeting, and include in your agenda for that meeting an opportunity for public questions, specific questions about things that are being proposed on the draft that is going to be voted on. It can be a 2-minute limit or however you see being productive use, but I think as they're describing things, it's right then that you want to say, well, what about this? So I just think it would be a helpful thing to put on the agenda, and you'll get, I think, more public participation with maybe some good feedback and some questions that the architect will then be able to take back and reconsider.
This has nothing to do with anything except this thing. It always irritates me a little bit. You all got microphones, but none of you talk into the microphone. What's in front of you, these microphones are not, they don't pick up. They're direct microphones. So none of you folks are using them properly. So we're not hearing you. You're talking to the microphones, you got to have it right there. If you go here, or it's over here, they don't work. So my suggestion is, please, use the microphones. Put them right in front of you. Then we can hear you. Because of course I'm hard of hearing anyway, but almost every time you folks, you're all good, but every time you started to talk, you were going over here and over here. The microphone was absolutely useless. Okay? Just learn that you have to do it right in front of you. Thank you.
Do our best. Okay. Yes.
Jessica Dobbs, Curtis Township. I was just curious. Oh, you want me to speak up? Jessica Dobbs, Curtis Township. So I was just curious. You guys had mentioned that someone had entered in Dolores' social security number, which was a fraudulent social security number, used her name, though, her personage, if you will, for the CHAMP system. Has that been referred to the sheriff because that is a form of identity theft, as well as probably fraud as well? So has that been forwarded to the sheriff because that is a criminal act? That's my only question. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Very nice. See if there's anything else on our agenda here. Okay. Now we'll have time for any comments by the directors. Here.
Can you hear me?
Put it to your face.
Is that
Don't
loud
get afraid to
enough?
talk into it.
Okay.
There you go.
You know, over the last couple of meetings, it has been brought up about, worrying about how the community or Facebook or social media picks up on things. Like I know we weren't using the ACCOA review for a lot of stuff because, frankly, there's just been too many assertions of too many things that have been made against this board that, to me, I can't see rewarding it. Number one, I don't care what community thought is. Everybody snipes away on community, on Facebook. Nobody has the guts to actually say things properly or civilly in a meeting. And the other issue we have been dealing with here that kind of really disturbs me is the overtones that all this stuff has been of a racial matter. It has not been. I mean, when you take a look at former treasurer we've had in Alcona County that made the news, God, back in 2008, that ghost has never died. I'm not saying anything or assuming anything, but what the current tone has been in this county, and I can remember sitting on the Board of Commissioners, meeting date was actually March 18th of 2020. I remember that date very well because I had somebody from Northeast Michigan Community Mental Health here because we were having problems with our government trying to privatize the mental health industry, and we didn't want them to do what these funds were accounted. And I remember a certain individual got up in the middle of the meeting had mentioned that had this been 60 years prior, he would have had to enter through a different door, use a different water cooler or bathroom. None of that has ever happened in Alcona. I hate when people make assumptions or assertions to that level. We are being honest and above board on all this stuff, and if anything comes out that any wrongdoing has been done, to me it would be equally prejudicial if we didn't do what we would do to any other person. So I don't know what's going on, I don't know what's going forward from here, but I am going to tell you those things are not going to weigh, at least on my decision. Regardless how this community looks at it, I am going to do what I believe the right thing is. My first duty is to the one that created me, that requires that I be honest and above board, and I plan on doing that. And wherever the chips fall or whatever things come out in the future, that is not going to deter me from doing the right thing.
Any other directors?
I do have something that, like, I'll go back to what Bob said. In the paper, the gentleman wrote that the rats are jumping over the ship. I kind of took that personally, because he's been kind of on my case since day one. We are probably, as a board that I've been on, the most transparent board that you're going to find. If you have a question, we try to answer it. We try to do things the right way, but yet, in public and in here, we find things that we're doing wrong. We don't do very many things right. We don't hear you're doing a good job. We don't hear different things, hey, thanks for stepping up. But yet, people like one gentleman, I wish he would come to a meeting and look us in the face and get to know us, because everyone on this board, everyone downstairs that's working for ACCOA has one thing in common, and that is the seniors. We are not here for the young people. We're here for the seniors, and due to the fact that the young people will benefit because they are going to become seniors. Trust me, I went to bed at 45 and I woke up at 65, and I don't know where the 20 years went, but I just want to say that I commend this board for all the work that we're doing, and everybody has bent over backwards to try to be transparent. And thanks to them, Scott, and thanks to Connie and Wendy for stepping up the way they have. I think it's a great thing going forward.
Can you all hear me without the microphone? Because our IT guy says that our microphone might have screwed up our recording last time. So if I need to use it, I will, but if that's the reason, I'm not.
Your voice is actually louder.
Okay. I'm going to piggyback on what they said. I think it's come to everybody's attention that there's an individual in town who's been using the paper to vent against the board, and even went to a board meeting of the elected officials. And we've addressed some of those complaints today, but I'm going to recap them because they were all completely false. Decisions are made behind closed doors. That's false. Every decision that's made comes before this board and gets elected and gets ratified. It said that the non-emergency transport made money. Non-emergency transport never made money, lost money. He said we drained the Edward Jones account and now we're broke. Neither of those are true. The money got transferred to Edward Jones' account into New York Life because of the huge losses we had, and we're hardly broke. The treasurer's report went over that today. Individuals said we are facing 3 lawsuits. We're facing 0 lawsuits. There's been 0 lawsuits filed against the ACCOA. Said the fitness center was closed and programs have been cut. Not a fitness center is open. We've reduced hours on the weekend during the summer. The fitness center is still open. There was a Tai Chi class here the other day. He said that used foul language in front of 2 members here, 2 participants in this meeting, saying it was about blank time that we had a plan and wanted to know if there was going to be housing in the plan. Well, if he had watched he or she, I'll put it that way, if he or she had watched the last board meeting, Andy Shaw was here and said to comply with the terms of the grant, there'd be a housing component, a senior housing component. This wasn't just today, this is brought up. If this person had done research, they would have seen that. But the worst thing is, this individual and another individual who ran for public office just as this last election has threatened to call the Michigan Attorney General and have him investigate this board. For all the things that we just went over that were shown, it was completely fraudulent. So what bothers me is we've got this local individual that's doing this, and contrary to that, we've got all these people who are stepping up and are getting on board this project. We had Dave Kaiser that gave us a half-price rate on doing the long reach. We got Don Gilman, who's going to handle all the plans and such as far as things that Harry Harvey can't do. Andy said he cut his price by 90% without even asking. We got consumers, a discount that I think you were able to get. They wanted to charge for a transformer or a pole. They wanted to step up and join it. Spectrum, we already talked about that today, how they're going to save us a bunch of money. The Matrix guy who's doing the fitness equipment gave us their best discount they could possibly have without having to go to the board of directors. Andy talked about that last night with the Board of Lincoln. The Board of Lincoln, Village of Lincoln Board, expedited the change of the language and ratified the site plan last night, altered their plan to step up and try to help us expedite this. I see the Village of Lincoln participants went to the site last night after the meeting. You've never seen so many smiles, so many people happy, wanting to get on board, seeing what's happening. And now we have a full site approval after 1 month of having the new architect. After previous people we dealt with, May of 2020 is when we start dealing with them. Did we ever get a plan, Dolores? Did we ever see a plan like this in all that time?
Not like this.
And yet that still wasn't fast enough for this person who said it's about effing time.
Well, so just one other thing too, we haven't spent half the money that they spent on all those other dreams.
So it's funny to me. I mean, I think we all have a choice. We have a choice to either see what this board is trying to do, or a choice to listen to I'm going to say it, the deranged ravings of a madman who is slamming everything the ACCOA board is going to do. So we all have a choice, and I hope you all choose wisely.
And the word is also out there that we are dropping all home delivered meals and congregate meals, and that is simply not true. We are doing very well on congregate. We're hoping to get more, but the Meals on Wheels is 100 meals a day. So that word is out there, but it's not true.
Okay. Any other directors have a comment? Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I was just going to hope somebody would do that. Anybody going to second that? I'll second it. Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. Meeting adjourned.